On my decision, all salvation rests. 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 What is salvation? What is salvation? Salvation is a promise made by God that you would find your way to Him at last. Salvation is undoing in the sense that it does nothing, failing to support the world of dreams and malice. On my decision, all salvation rests. 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 Well, thank you all so much for joining me. I'm Willie from the Ozarks, and we're ready for lesson 238 in A Course in Miracles Workbook for Students. We're reading from the original edition. Thank you so much for joining me. Here on Saturday, August the 26th of 2023. On my decision, all salvation rests. Think of some other words we can put in there. On my decision, the power of decision. You have the power of choice. And the whole world opens up or closes to you based on that choice. Or maybe I should say heaven opens up to you, or in the world's changed in a thought. On my decision, all happiness rests. On my decision, all healing rests. On my decision, all prosperity rests. On my decision, on my choices, all salvation rests. The prayer says, Father, your trust in me has been so great I must be worthy. You created me and know me as I am, and yet you placed your Son's salvation in my hands and let it rest on my decision. I must be beloved of you indeed, and I must be steadfast in holiness as well, that you would give your Son to me in certainty that he is safe, who still is part of you and yet is mine because he is myself. On my decision, all salvation rests. And so again today we pause to think how much our Father loves us. And so again today we pause to think how much our Father loves us and how dear His Son, created by His love, remains to Him whose love is made complete in Him. And so again today we pause to think how much our Father loves us and how dear His Son, created by His love, remains to Him, whose love is made complete in Him. You can't do anything to keep God from loving you and blessing you and wanting you to make the choice for your happiness, for your salvation. Okay, let's go look at our associated reading with today's lesson. What is salvation? Salvation is a promise made by God that you would find your way to Him at last. It cannot but be kept. It guarantees that time will have an end, and all the thoughts that have been born in time will end as well. God's Word has given every mind which thinks that it has separate thoughts and will replace these thoughts of conflict with the thought of peace. The thought of peace was given to God's Son the instant that his mind had thought of war. There was no need for such a thought before, for peace was given without opposite and merely was. But when the mind is split, there is a need of healing. So the thought which has the power to heal the split became a part of every fragment of the mind that still was one, but failed to recognize its oneness. Now it did not know itself and thought its own identity was lost. Salvation is undoing in the sense that it does nothing, failing to support the world of dreams and malice. Thus it lets illusions go. By not supporting them, it merely lets them quietly go down to dust. And what they hid is now revealed, an altar to the holy name of God whereon His word is written, with the gifts of your forgiveness laid before it, and the memory of God not far behind. See why we want to practice forgiveness? See the innocence in your brothers and sisters. When you think they've done something that is deserving of your judgment, anger, condemnation, criticism, irritation, tell yourself, forgiveness recognizes what I thought my brother did to me had not occurred. So realize it's just a dream that you can wake up from and see the love. See that it was an appeal for love and healing and help, and give them that healing, help, and love. Let us come daily to this holy place and spend a while together. That's why we want to take those quiet, extended times in the morning and in the evening, to where we can just kind of, before the busyness of the day and at the end of the busyness of the day, sit and be still and offer it at the altar of God and offer your forgiveness. Rehearse, go over the things you've done that day and look at them in the light of they're your brother, they're part of you, and that you want to offer forgiveness and love and kindness. Let us come daily to this holy place and spend a while together. Here we share our final dream. It is the dream in which there is no sorrow, for it holds a hint of all the glory given us by God. The grass is pushing through the soil, the trees are budding now, and birds have come to live within their branches. Earth is being born again in new perception. Night has gone, and we have come together in the light. From here we give salvation to the world, for it is here salvation was received. The song of our rejoicing is the call to all the world that freedom is returned, that time is almost over, and God's Son has but an instant more to wait until His Father is remembered. Dreams are done. Eternity has shined away the world, and only heaven now exists at all. And you don't have to die, and the world doesn't have to come to an end for all that to happen. It's just a choice away. Choice to accept yourself as God created you. Okay, well, today's lesson again on my choices, on my decision. All my happiness rests. All salvation rests. I like to think of happiness as a synonym for salvation. So I a lot of times will enter, because you're being saved from what makes you not happy. So that's the way I like to look at it. On my decision, all salvation rests. Okay, well, let's go look at our text reading for today. And we're ready for, in chapter 25, the remedy, ready for Roman numeral 5, the joining of minds. And while you're turning there, let's take a look at what on earth is going on today. Congressional Startup Day, and that's for, it's almost like a lobbying day, but it's where businesses, and it may be actually, but it's where business, the way it talked about it on the article I read was where business owners have a day to get in and talk to their legislators and get policy changes, which is law changes, to help their benefit them. And laws, I think, should be changed for the people's best interest, but they should be done to where it helps everybody, not just a certain group of people. That's the way laws should be. Make your own luck day. Now that is definitely another way of saying our lesson for today. On my decision, all salvation rests. Make your own luck day. Musical Yoga Day, and a lot of yogis like to play music and dance, and that'd be more what we would call bhakti yoga, and some yogis, and maybe when you're doing your hatha yoga exercises, like to have some, usually non-verbal, but even verbal if it's mantras being chanted, but music playing. So anyway, today's Musical Yoga Day. National Cherry Popsicle Day, and we'll talk about a cherry here in a minute. National Dog Day, hot dog days of summer. National Toilet Paper Day. Did you know the United States uses more toilet paper than any country by population than any other country? I thought that was interesting. A lot of countries, use water, but anyway, just interesting side note. Of course, out here when you're camping and whatnot, your mullein leaves work really nice. National Web Mistress Day, and of course that's because it's also Women's Equality Day, which was August 26th, 1920, the 19th Amendment, which said you couldn't, I forget how the wording goes, but basically, regardless of your sex, you have a voice. And Speak Kind Words Saturday. Wow, that should be every day, huh? But speak kind words. Random acts of kindness, little words you say. Give no thought what you should say, but only such a word as is good for edification according to the need of the moment, that it may give grace to those who hear. I think that's out of Ephesians, maybe chapter 6. Something to that effect. Okay, and I said I wanted to talk about some cherries. Let's talk about ACIM sweet cherry, which we've talked about before, but you know what? Since it's Cherry Popsicle Day, you got to have cherries in order to make a popsicle. And I had a little cherry tree growing. My kids was growing right at the front yard, and that thing finally died. But you can throw a little rubber snake up in the cherry tree and move it around, and that'll usually keep the birds from eating the cherries. That's what we always had a problem with. The Sam Sweet Cherry, actually we hadn't talked about a Sam. We're talking about it today. It's where we left off when we were talking about cherries. Sam is a black sweet cherry ripening early, very crack resistant in wet weather, a favorite at the nursery. And this is out of ediblelandscaping.com. Good pollinator for the Rainier cherry, which we read about the Rainier sweet cherry back on, we read about it twice. Anyway, good pollinator for Rainier. Canker resistant, which is very important for eastern conditions. More adaptable than Bing sweet cherries to eastern conditions. Space dwarf at 10-foot circles, semi-dwarfs 15-foot circles, and standards at 25-foot circles. Zones 5 through 7, the Sam Sweet Cherry. And that is your, that's the Prunus avium. And then I also wanted to tell you about another Cucumis mellow, and it's the Queen Anne's Pocket Melon. Now this is interesting, the way it got its name. It's got a couple aliases too. This variety is also known as Plum Granny, the Plum Granny melon, and Dudame melon. Victorian women were known to carry these tiny melons in their pockets to counteract the rough aromas of life in the days before deodorant. It must have a pleasant smell, huh? Melons were developed and domesticated in Africa and Asia. Europeans settling in the Americas are recorded growing honeydew and cassava melons in the 17th century. 2,900 seeds to the ounce. That's kind of a small seed, huh? 2,900 seeds to the ounce. And that's your Queen Anne's Pocket Melon. It's also a Cucumis mellow, though. And I've also got one more, the other side NDE. It's an 8-minute and 31-second Jan Christensen story. And it's titled, Woman Dies and Gets Shown Truth About Energy and Emotions, NDE. And basically what she realized is that we're so loved. And it was a kind of a short experience she had, but it changed her life permanently. No fear. There's no need to fear anything. There's this complete love and that she felt it, experienced it, was one with it, realized that she was part of it, and that it goes everywhere, and that she's one with it, that she's completely safe, that ecstatic feeling of no beginning and no end. Anyway, a really good near-death experience. Okay, so before we read, let's keep in our mind, on my decision, all salvation rests. The joining of minds. Minds that are joined and recognize they are can feel no guilt. Minds that are joined and recognize they are can feel no guilt. For they cannot attack, and they rejoice that this is so, seeing their safety in this happy fact. Their joy is in the innocence they see. Wow, that's why we want to start just see innocence. You keep practicing forgiveness until it becomes just such a habit that you just never even make the condemnation to begin with. And thus they seek for it, because it is their purpose to behold it and rejoice. Their joy is their joy is the innocence they see, and thus they seek for the innocence they want to see, because it is their purpose to behold it and rejoice. Everyone seeks for what will bring him joy as he defines it. It is not the aim as such that varies, yet it is the way in which the aim is seen that makes the choice of means inevitable and beyond the hope of change, unless the aim is changed. And then the means are chosen once again, as what will bring rejoicing is defined another way and sought for differently. Instead of thinking you're going to get joy out of some form in this world, you start realizing that it's by the innocence you see in everyone that brings you joy. Paragraph 33, perception's basic law could thus be said: you will rejoice at what you see because you see it to rejoice. Perception's basic law could thus be said: you will rejoice at what you see because you see it to rejoice. And while you think that suffering and sin will bring you joy, so long will they be there for you to see. Nothing is harmful or beneficent apart from what you wish. It is that's why we say, on my decision, all salvation rests. Nothing is harmful or beneficent apart from what you wish. It is your wish that makes it what it is in its effects on you. Because you chose it as a means to gain these same effects, believing them to be the bringers of rejoicing and of joy. Even in heaven does this law obtain. The Son of God creates to bring him joy, sharing his Father's purpose in his own creation, that his joy might be increased and God's along with his. 34. You makers of a world that is not so, take rest and comfort in another world where peace abides. This world you bring with you to all the weary eyes and tired hearts that look on sin and beat its sad refrain. From you can come their rest. From you can rise a world they will rejoice to look upon, and where their hearts are glad. In you there is a vision which extends to all of them, and covers them in gentleness and light. And in this widening world of light, the darkness they thought was there is pushed away until it is but distant shadows, far away, not long to be remembered as the sun shines them to nothingness. And all their evil thoughts and sinful hopes, their dreams of guilt and merciless revenge, and every wish to hurt and kill and die, will disappear before the sun you bring. The sun, S-U-N, that you bring. The light that you bring. 35. Would you not do this for the love of God and for yourself? For think what it would do for you. Your, in quotes, evil thoughts would haunt you now. Your evil thoughts that haunt you now will seem increasingly remote and far away from you. And they go farther and farther off because the sun in you has risen, that they may be pushed away before the light. They linger for a little while, in twisted forms too far away for recognition, and are gone forever. And in the sunlight you will stand in quiet, in innocence, and wholly unafraid. And from you will the rest you found extend, so that your peace can never fall away and leave you homeless. Those who offer peace to everyone have found a home in heaven the world cannot destroy, for it is large enough to hold the world within its peace. And 36, the last paragraph in this section, which we'll stop today. In you is all of heaven. In you is all of heaven. Every leaf that falls is given life in you. Each bird that ever sang will sing again in you. And every flower that ever bloomed has saved its perfume and its loveliness for you. What aim can supersede the will of God and of His Son, that heaven be restored to Him, for whom it was created as His only home? Nothing before and nothing after it. No other place, no other state nor time, nothing beyond nor nearer, nothing else, in any form. This can you bring to all the world and all the thoughts that entered it and were mistaken for a little while. How better could your own mistakes be brought to truth than by your willingness to bring the light of heaven with you as you walk beyond the world of darkness into light? So bring the light of God with you. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. On my decision, all salvation rests. Father, your trust in me has been so great, I must be worthy. This is lesson 238. On my decision, all salvation rests. Father, your trust in me has been so great, I must be worthy. You created me and know me as I am, and yet you placed your Son's salvation in my hands and let it rest on my decision. I must be beloved of you indeed, and I must be steadfast in holiness as well, that you would give your Son to me in certainty that He is safe, who still is part of you, and yet is mine because He is myself. And so again today we pause to think how much our Father loves us. And so again today we pause to think how much our Father loves us, and how dear His Son, created by His love, remains to Him whose love is made complete in Him. And I just wanted you to think about this. I had one of our listeners, Jacob, had written in and said that wanted to know how he could get this curriculum, and the curriculum we're doing is everything that we're doing. It's so easy that it's not a difficult curriculum. 30 minutes a day is what we spend together, or a little less. And if you do your meditation twice a day, you're going to spend another, maybe another 30 minutes. And then just throughout the day, you're going to bring up the thoughts of bringing you happy. How could that cost any time if you're just thinking about how thankful you are? So our curriculum is simple and easy, and yet it's so simple, a lot of people don't even look inside and find it. So let me encourage all of us to do our lessons and realize that we give up nothing to receive the gift of everything. On my decision, all salvation rests. 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 What is salvation? What is salvation? Salvation is is a promise made by God, that you would find your way to Him at last. Salvation is a promise made by God, that you would find your way to Him at last. Salvation is undoing in the sense that it does nothing, failing to support the world of dreams and malice. The song of our rejoicing is the call to all the world, that freedom is returned, that time is almost over, and God's Son has but an instant more to wait, until His Father is remembered, dreams are done. Eternity has shined away the world, and only heaven now exists at all. The song of our rejoicing is the call to all the world, that freedom is returned, that freedom is returned, that time is almost over, and God's Son has but an instant more to wait, until His Father is remembered and dreams are done. Eternity has shined away the world, and only heaven now exists at all. Salvation is a promise made by God, that you would find your way to Him at last. Salvation is undoing in the sense that it does nothing, failing to support the world of dreams and malice. On my decision, all salvation rests. On my decision, all salvation rests. On my decision, all salvation rests. On my decision, all salvation, all my happiness rests. On my decision, all my happiness rests. On my decision, all salvation rests. On my decision, all salvation rests. On my decision, all salvation rests. On my decision, all my happiness rests. On my decision, all happiness rests. On my decision, all salvation rests. On my choice between heaven or hell, on my decision, all salvation rests.